Welcome to another episode and another workshop here at speakupafrica.net. Here we're discussing post COP27. Today we're trying to analyze exactly what is your climate story. Tell us what you think climate change is all about, and then tell us, do you think the global initiatives taken by Kenya and the world in general are effective to some extent? So we saw so many delegates going to the COP27. We saw them having these discussions. We listened to these discussions, and even before the discussions were done, we started having issues like the Uganda and oil started having issues like cutting on trees, the baobabs, and the taking away of our natural existing plants and species and things like that. So this is a discussion that we really need to have. This is a discussion we actually need to have right here on Speak Up Africa. So today I'm hosting three guests. I'm hosting Karen from Tanzania, I'm hosting Paul from Uganda, and I am hosting Victor from Kenya. All three are going to be representatives to tell us what they think climate change is all about and what we can do as individuals to ensure that we change the narrative and mitigate climate change. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. They're going to tell us who they are and why they feel that they are best fit to answer the question of climate change and to have this discussion here today. I am going to start with you, Paul, representing Uganda. Hello, Paul. Hello. So just take a minute to tell us about yourself, tell us your environmentalism journey, tell us about climate change, and then tell us why you feel you're fit to have the discussion on post-COP27, environmental sustainability and climate action.
My name is Paul Mukisa, and team leader to climate and biodiversity initiative Uganda, a young startup for youth-led mobilization here in Uganda, is ensuring that people and nature flourish together, but in a sustainable manner. We're really looking at perspective where man can live the environment having a better negative impact on it, having a friendly ecosystem, a friendly way of life living. Still, we can depend on the environment having a better negative impact on it. Still, the environment will also live as nothing to conservation, using harvesting means of living, and then maybe reducing consumption, production, and also recycling. My climate journey is actually in Uganda. Uganda is one of the countries in East Africa which have been heavily hit by climate change, right, especially in the past 2 years, especially high drought, and then this year, in the month of August, we had severe floods, landslides in the eastern part of the country, this in the Mali district of Uganda, where we had over 500 families were displaced, no sustainable means of living in their camps. They have nowhere to live, had been displaced, human mobility, and migration. And so this is all about climate change. And then we being with a whole country, we are more prone to climate hazards depending on geographical location of the continent. So it's really a very terrible situation here. Floods come, destroy property, people lose lives, and people get displaced, and it comes along with healthy implications. Access to clean water becomes a very big problem in the country, especially for the areas that have really been hit by climate change hazards. And so, my view about the conference parties and all initiatives that are coming up to ensure that climate change can be fixed to some extent. To some extent, I really feel there is a very loophole in the implementation plan of these organizations. So the way of implementing and strategizing is really very unfair, especially in the African continent. There is no balance of resources, and then there is no resource allocation somewhere. So I see it in a way that people are supposed to receive the bread and not getting the bread, and people who are not meant to get the bread are getting the bread. So I really think there is
Thank you very, very much for that very detailed introduction of yourself and why you feel like you're the best person to answer this question. You seem to have a lot of experience when it comes to climate justice and climate injustices all over the world, not just in Uganda and East Africa in general. So thank you for that, Paul. Now let's go to Onjolo Victor from Kenya. Onjolo is an environmentalist and he's going to tell us why he feels he's the best person to have the post COP27 discussion right here on Speak Up Africa. Onjolo, a brief introduction of yourself and tell us why you feel you're the best person to have this discussion.
Thank you very much for hosting me and having me on this forum. And person to answer this question or conversation because community of the effects of top floods in DRC, talk about drought in northern part of Isiolo, talk about of people, women, and because of all these pains of brought out by climate change. I think has
It seems that we lost Onjolo. There's some sort of network issues, it seems, from his end. But we move on regardless because these things are inevitable. So I'm going to just go back to Paul and I'm going to tell you to give us your climate story. But before I do that, I want us to just break down what a climate story is. Climate story is that moment when you realized that climate change was actually real. That moment when climate change was real for you. My climate change story is when I went to my grandmother and I wanted to bring a bag of fruits home, and I couldn't bring a bag of fruits home because there were no fruits. And for the first time ever since I was a child, there were no fruits at my grandmother's. And the reason is because the sun was too hot. The sun was too hot that there were no fruits to take home. So, Paul, I want you to give us your climate change story. At what point did climate change stop being this big jargon in the environmental field and started being personal to you, instead of being something you can actually talk to people about? Tell us about it, Paul, as we wait for Onjolo. And also, apologies on behalf of Karen. She has not been able to join us yet, but we are hoping that she'll be able to join us. She has a lot of issues and a lot of meetings following each other up. So back to you, Paul. Tell us at what point did climate change become personal for you?
Well, yeah, thank you, Kermi. Depending on my background, I come from a pastoral community where we do rear cows. And so I come from one of the parts of the country where we have we face the longest terms of drought, and then at the same time also face the longest term of the longest months of floods. So being in a pastoral community where drought really hits the place, you really have questions for cows to feed off. The production from the farms also reduces, and then cows die, and then it really pushes people to uptake poverty. So to me, I grew up in that life where I would see people's property, especially cows, really dying, and the person really goes back to zero. It's not an abject poverty. You have nothing to do about it. You don't have the mitigation system and the adaptation system, and people just get pushed into abject poverty just like that. Very vulnerable, the very innocent people who are really suffering at the expense of the greatest polluters. And then the temperatures rise so badly, people can't dig anymore. They cultivate for a very short period of time, and then all things dry up. People starve. We have had the situation here in Karamoja, in the northern part of the country. People have really died. We have lost over 500 families, young people, nothing to eat, starving to death. No room for cultivation. Conditions are really very, very, very unpredictable. And then all people suffer. was a terrible situation, I can say. People really suffered. It has been a terrible year. I've seen the past months that the people of the northern region in Uganda, the Karumatung, that have gone through the region. I don't think any human being deserves to go through that kind of situation. People reach an extent of eating grass. Time reaches, they can't even find the grass anymore because it has dried up. This is how terrible I have experienced with climate change. This is the worst situation. I never wish anyone to go through that kind of situation. Climate change has really pushed the third world countries to abject poverty. It has become one of the greatest contributors to totally bring our economies down, because most of the developing countries, they get little aid. And then some of the national budgets go to administration, security, and then there's nothing cared for when it comes to disaster and relief. And mind you, the disaster and relief budget, yeah, most of the developing countries do it, put more of their monies or most of their economic resources on short term. And then we put our resources so much on relief, but you don't put it on disaster preparedness. Relief is something that you're going to give someone today, and then tomorrow that person really needs to eat. And you cannot keep giving someone food, a bag of bush of 5 kilograms today, tomorrow. It's not sustainable at all. It's really very worse. Climate change is, my story is really very, very terrible. I get very emotional when I talk about climate change. It's really, I never wish anyone to have an impact on climate change. It's really terrible, but I guess we keep recovering slowly, but it's really very hard. People get so much to maintain. Psychological effects, and then I can say all will be well if at all we become strategic at handling the situation with agency, with emergency. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello. Okeshi, I didn't hear you. I can't get you.
Microphone was off. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sure. Hear you.
All right, so sorry about that. Let's get back to the conversation that we were having. And I was saying it is important for you to tell us what your climate change story is. And I was saying climate change happens every single day. It happens in the smallest ways, in the biggest ways, and it is with us. It is imperative for us to recognize that climate change is not a story about those people that are dying of droughts. It's also a story about what we are going through as individuals. And because of that, I would like to hear your climate change story as you wind up on telling us why you feel like you're the best person to have this conversation post COP27.
Okay, thank you again for having me, and I'm sorry for my previous technicalities. And thank you very much for having this conversation because for me, I fall under the communication bit because the media station they don't communicate these issues very well. Took a step higher to have a social media page where I can be able to share out such a conversation out there because most of the people are in social media now because we are having an instant generation. You tweet, it's retweeted. You post, it's liked, it's double tap. So I just decided to, how about I create content about climate action? How about I create a conversation? How about I spark up conversation about climate change? That's when I decided to choose a way to which I will be able to reach out a wider audience through matters content creation, matters messaging. So that's the reason why I decided to take that part of communication, given that I'm also a researcher. So it will be easy for me to communicate out there my research in conservation. I'm a student of plant botany, and that's why I do champion more of what we call uh, plant nature-based solution, if I may say. So I encourage more people to join in on matters conservation in terms of planting trees because these trees can help in terms of carbon sequestration. What is carbon sequestration? Carbon sequestration is the process where these plants take up the excess carbon in our atmosphere. Yes, scientists are trying to come up with ways to curb this excess carbon in the air. But it's expensive. But what is there is the trees that we have. Can we plant more? Can we plant them during our birthdays? Can we plant them during our national celebrations? Can we plant them during our Christmas festivities? Because these trees critical role in terms of carbon sequestration. So let's join hands with me. Tell you in place join me in starting more trees on environment on nature. Thank you.
My God. So thank you so much for that very detailed breakdown on Jalo. Now, before you go, I just want you to give us a view because when we bring Paul back, he's going to be giving it from a Ugandan point of view. But what did you really think about COP27? And tell us in general, do you think it is imperative for Uganda to actually continue with their pipeline despite being major participants of COP27? Give us your views so that we can bring Mugis back on. But tell us, what did you think of COP27 and what do you think about the pipeline relationship that is running in Uganda to COP27?
Thank you very much for bringing the conversation about COP27. Uh, as Africa went to COP27, they expected actually two or three things to be put on the table, and this was loss and damage and the issues about adaptation. Did they deliver about it? Yes, it did. But the deal, the deal on the loss and damage was the one questionable, and the disappointment was in the reduction of CO2 and fossil fuel. That was some of the few issues that was somewhat controversial because there was an issue of face down and face out conversation. So many countries were like, we are not facing out, but we are facing down. Rather, we are reducing our carbon emission, or rather, we are reducing our fossil fuel usage. And with such a conversation, which took too long to have this discussion on the table for loss and damage, given that Africa will contribute less and we endure a lot in terms of environmental damage. It took us nearly 30 years for us to have such framework for loss and damage. We are waiting for this loss and damage framework to be straightened because it was just some of the things that were brought in the discussion. We are waiting for, these leaders mostly they are into promises, but when it comes to putting them out there into action, it becomes a matter questionable. So we are waiting for this framework to be worked on, hoping it will be well. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Now I want to bring Paul back to the stream. And I want Paul, you to tell us, what did you think of COP27, and what did you think about the fact that even before we had actually forgotten about COP27, we already had ECOP coming up, we had the pipeline issues in Uganda, and we had activists calling out saying this is hypocritical. How can you, on one side, say no to carbon fuels and fossil fuels, and then the other side, you're actually creating pipeline? What do you think about narrative?
Thank you, Karen. Once again, my perception and how I view COP27. Well, it's a very good strategy relating to getting climate change. But then at the same time, I really felt that there was a lot of injustice with COP27. A lot. I can give an example of the loss and damage fund. Africa emits less than 4% of emissions. That means the 96 or the 96 percent of the emissions are from Europe and developed nations. But still, it had to take the African delegates almost deep nights of the morning to negotiate for the loss. Why should we be treated that way? Our grandfathers didn't use cars. They didn't use gas. They didn't use fossil fuels in the African continent. Why did we have to be pushed that kind of extremity that we had to negotiate and have sleepless nights? Yet this was something clear that every leader at the global conference would see, and out of common sense would really tell that we didn't have to push the global south to this extent. It had to be paced so high. Well, the loss and damage fund was approved, but there's no agreed time of delivery. That's really a gap. We don't know when they're going to deliver the funds. It wasn't even quoted in the articles. So how sure are we that the fund will be guaranteed to the developing countries? Just like the 100 billion that were pledged at COP26. Where are they? We haven't seen them. And then that's how profits keep coming in, and then they keep going. No impact at all. So I really think there was a lot of injustice. And if we don't address the gap in between, then we shall always keep operating at a personal business authority that what there needs to be, catered for. Africa is not a buffer zone. Why should Europe need all those global emissions, and then Africa acts as a buffer zone to have their waste, and then have the all high temperatures, all being affected, being covered in the African continent? It's really unfair. So I really think we have to really be so strategic and put ourselves if we're really fighting climate change in the right way. And then about the pipeline project, well, I would say from the economic development point of view, the fact is Africa as the East African community, Tanzania, Kenya, and Rwanda, plus Uganda, ECOP project is very important. I'm not anti-ECOP, but as long as it's done in the right ways, we will have no problem. And the
say, Paul, you're quite a passionate gentleman when it comes to these things. But you've asked a lot of questions and you have brought about a lot of conversations that have been held before. Does it mean essentially because developing countries, particularly African countries, and in this case, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, are suffering the effects of global warming? Does it necessarily mean that industrialization was a mistake? Does it mean that it should not have happened? I actually want you to answer that. Right now, we are both on the stream. Do you think we should not have developed? Because you really carrying the weight of the numerous years of pollution that have caused global warming and essentially climate change. So, should we have not gone through industrialization?
Well, I can say, when you talk about industrialization in the East African community or globally, I don't know.
Globally,
Yeah, globally. Well,
globally.
yeah, thank you. If you read about the Geneva Convention of 1972 that was talking about transboundary pollution, and also
Mm-hmm.
the convention that was talking about waste management, that was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to control the importation and exportation of waste. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
industrialization is really good. It's really okay, but it must be done under controlled measures. Of late, actually,
Mm-hmm.
we should be shifting from fossil fuels. There's green economy. There are other alternative ways of having an industrial community going on. Industrialization was really good, but if you read the Kyoto Protocol that was holding the parties that subscribed to the agreement, and then they agreed to cut the emissions down, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end of it, they did fulfill the agreement. That alone shows that, well, the industrial is really okay, but why do you have to exceed the limit? Okay, so they should mark it in this that, well, I believe the European world has the mitigation measures which Africa doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Being in that kind of state, that means for them, they show that they would commit any extent for them since they have the measures to mitigate the pollution, which Africa doesn't have. So I really think they went beyond the expectations and they're not really respecting the agreements that they only seen at the conference of parties. So I really think this thing of agreements and having these parties go on sign these agreements is not truth about them.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and the conversation behind Kyoto Protocol and the parties pulling out, and why Kyoto Protocol was very strict and it had very defined ways and fines of how people would go about climate action and environmental sustainability. Yet the protocols and the agreements that followed, the Conference of Parties, the Paris Agreement, and everyone that followed after that was not very. It was more on volunteer based. Is a discussion that we're going to have. But right now, I would like to recognize the presence of our Tanzanian lady, our environmentalist from Tanzania. Her name is Karin. Karin, you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to tell us a little bit about you. Tell us why you're the best person to have this discussion on post COP27, and then tell us your climate story. At what point did climate change become personal for you?
Hello, so my name is Zakarin Joel Makitalu. I'm Tanzanian climate advocate, but also co-founder of a mobile eco hub named Notaka, and we're basically leveraging on technology to co-create climate change solutions for grassroots communities in Tanzania. And prior to co-founding Notaka, I've worked with the civil society sector, international organizations such as the United Nations, and the media. I produced a TV show for about 2 years, and it was a liberation show for the young people in Tanzania because I felt they are not given the space that they need, and there were a lot of challenges that I woke up to every morning. And when I looked at young people, I saw potential to solutions of those challenges. And one of the major challenges was environmental destruction. So I felt like if we were given the right opportunities and space and platforms to showcase our potential, we would be able to do more than what we were doing back then. And that is how I started the TV show that rounded up around over 200 young people per week, and we spoke about issues that matters, most especially climate change and the environment. It was back then a very peculiar, okay, not peculiar wouldn't be the right word, a very alien subject, but back then, and not many people were talking about it. So that show was a platform for those young people to learn, but also see how they can get a space to contribute to the solutions to the challenges that we were facing, especially climate change. So for me, I am a Pan-African and very passionate about African leadership and the trajectory of the African continent. So climate change became personal to me the moment that I came to understand back then, when I was pushed to start the show, that it would be a major hindrance for Africa to rise up as a continent if we are still facing climate change and its impact. So I thought, no, like I can't let that happen. I can't solve all the problems in the world, but I'm sure I can do something significant and then pass on to others who are coming after me. So that is my story.
That is a very detailed, wonderful story. Thank you so much, Karin. For Karin, it was more of, I have to make some sort of change, so let me do it. And she ended up getting to the point of becoming an environmentalist. So thank you so much for joining us. And I want to bring on board the whole panel from Ojolo to Paul, as well as Karin, everybody. Just let's talk about the agreements that have come before COP27. Let's talk about them. I saw in Jolo you had mentioned something about COP15. You had said some of the things that were put forward in the agreement, Conference of Parties 15, did not see the light of day. Mugisa also mentioned something about the Kyoto Protocol, saying that the Kyoto Protocol had defined roles, yet we saw people pulling out. We saw governments as big as the United States pulling out from the Kyoto Protocol. We saw them pulling out from the Paris Agreement. Is it something that can just happen like this? Is it a responsibility that we choose today? I want to be climate sensitive, tomorrow I don't want to be climate sensitive. And exactly how do you feel about how nations, developing and developed countries, how do you feel about how they behave towards the conversation on climate change? So let us start with Onjolo. This is a panel discussion, so we are all going to be here and keep talking and interrupt someone if they say something that does not go with you. But let's try and make it civil. Onjolo, what did you think about the conference of parties that have gone before and the agreements in climate action that have been there before?
Okay, thank you very much. And you bringing this conversation, I remember when United States of America pulled itself out, that is some 2 or 3 years ago, they pulled themselves out of the climate discussion. And again, it brings me to a conversation that, is it a matter of leaders that we choose, or is it a matter of about the nation, or rather the region, or rather the world as it is? Because most of these impacts not only impact our nation, it actually permeates to different parts of the world. So if you pull out of such a conversation, what are you telling the whole nation? Because it can't be like you were elected by some of these people, then you want to serve some of these people, forgetting that there are some of the people who you never elected, but they were pro climate change discussions, and you are just taking a single thought of you yourself, trying to pull out the whole nation outside of climate discussion. So I think this thing needs to have a national and regional and international look, in that we participate globally, because it's a global issue. It's not a country's issue. It's not a regional issue. It's just a global issue. For example, we had the pandemic. And we solved it. We solved it internationally. We never solved it like one nation pulling aside. because at the end of the day, this pandemic, it will affect you in one way or the other. Because I can be able to travel from here to the other part of the country, and you see what it will affect you if I'm infected. So the same urge to which we solved COVID-19 pandemic, let's put the same when solving climate issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that breakdown, Angelo. Now to you, Paul, what do you think about the whole, today we are solving climate, tomorrow we're not solving climate, today developed countries are to blame, tomorrow developing countries are not doing the most. What do you think about that conversation, especially when you look at it based on the conference of parties that have come before COP27, and essentially the I'm sorry for that. Mugisa, please go ahead. I'm so sorry for the shake-up on the network. Um, Tell us what you think about the conference of parties that existed before COP27 and the agreements that were there and the fulfillment of those things. And is it a now and then issue when we come to talking about climate action?
Thank you. In my own perspective, I think climate change should be a global concern because climate change has no boundaries. It doesn't know whether you're black, it doesn't know whether you're white or Negro. It's an issue that really affects all of us. And so if we're tackling climate change, we should tackle it in a manner that is everyone's concern. And we should not look at it that we are doing a action plan rather than having the paperwork and then things keep on happening. Well, countries have done the NDCs, the national determined contributions, which were demanded at COP and COP26. I think Uganda has already put its indices there actually as one of the also made a review for the Shai Commission. It was really amazing work, but we were ready to implement, but the greatest polluters must pay for this price because we are the latest people that contribute the least amount of pollution to environmental destruction. So I really think we must hold the greatest polluters accountable. Should not, any developing countries should not suffer at the expense of developed countries. There must be accountability. There must be checks and balances. All those have to be captured by the conference of parties, but no one does this. So who's going to track? Who's going to do the checks and the balances? Who's going to ask for the accountability? And being a matter of it that COP27 was the least funded COP in the world, I think, was the least funded. Why? People were denied accreditation, people were denied funding. Why is it? Because it was happening in Africa. And COP26, most people are flooding in Glasgow. Fancy parties, fancy, everything was fancy. But when it came to Egypt, you saw what happened. No accreditation, no funding. And you expect us to track accountability with the greatest polluters. This is totally injustice. And if we cannot address these gaps, I really don't think we're going to achieve fighting climate change. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say Paul's favorite word has to be injustice, climate injustice. He said it a number of times in this forum, but it's fine, it's fine. I want to take this question back to Karen, and I want to ask you, Karen, do you think the initiatives and the mitigation measures taken towards climate action are political? Do you think there's a political bias behind this, especially in Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda?
I mean, everything in the decision making space is political. It is one way or another influenced by politics, and that is why in this year's activities of my work, I've been trying to tell every young person in the climate space that I've met to start viewing the whole climate change issue as a geopolitical issue. We can't just view it from our side. We can't just view climate change from the side of the victims, from the side of people who are supposed to be given the money, from the side of the ones that are contributing less but are bearing the blunt the most. It is good to view this whole issue in that perspective, but that's not the only perspective. We have, especially young people, we have to begin to navigate and unpack the geopolitical influence in the whole issue of climate change. And I feel like this starts with how the schemes, the systems, and the procedures are done from our country level, right? We know, okay, from my experience, I know that um, East Africa, the whole climate change issue and its procedures is not very well communicated, especially to grassroots communities. We have not yet managed to take on the procedures, the systems, and the processes of climate change or that are related to the COPs to our communities, for our communities to be able to effectively and efficiently engage in these processes. We want to win, yes. We want to be heard, yes. But we, most of the time, if we lack this stance this geopolitical stance, we end up making noise in the wrong places and not getting the answers that we need to get. So I tell young people, right, there are structures towards the COP. Even before you get to UNFCCC and you want to attend the COP, there are structures at your country level. We have focal points, we have strategies, we have plans, and we have procedures that you as a young person need to read and be well vested about. And after that, there are regional, even before you go to the global, there are regional interventions, there are regional agreements on the ground pertaining the issues that you need to understand and be part of, because most of the time what most young people don't know, or what most of the communities do not know on the ground, do not know, is that COP is very important. But if you have attended COP a few times, you'd agree with me that COP is just where they hit the nail, the last hammer on the nail. Okay, there is background work that has already been done through regional and national convenings, that if you want to pass your agenda, if you want your agenda to be heard, if you want uh, outputs, if you want solutions of the agenda, you need to understand these processes. So if we as communities, if we as victims and the most affected do not understand these processes, we stand no chance even, to get our needs and requirements in the documents that help us get those things. So I feel like, yes, in every stance, climate change issue in East Africa, in West Africa, in Africa as a whole, and in anywhere in the world, it is geopolitical, and it is influenced by political issues. So we need to understand those issues and be part of those issues, and then channel our solutions, our agendas, our needs, our requirements through the systems in place. I said this in New York during the United Nations General Assembly, and I'm going to say it again. If we need to see results, we need to learn to play the game. Thank you.
I love how you winded up the conversation. If we need to see results, we need to learn how to play the game. And I want to ask you this. Do you think the developing countries have played blame game for so long? Do you think essentially that it is about time that developing countries, in this particular case, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, actually take up the banner and decide we're going to change our climate story, rather than continuously wait for global treaties to come in play, rather than continuously wait for someone to come and change your backyard, yet you're not doing anything about it? Do you think it's about time that we actually take it? Or do you think we need to let the globe play it as it has for the longest time?
No. It's like, my beautiful host, it's not even about time. We're late. We need to catch this bus, now we need to build capacities ourselves. Because I had this conversation with the executive secretary for UN Biodiversity, and she said something very profound. She told me, Karine, you're a young person, and you're fighting for spaces for other young people in the community to be heard, especially people from the global south. And most of the most popular common agenda that you people are making noise about is finance, right? Of course we need the money. But she said something profound. She said, the money, if we need to channel and lobby the money into Africa, it is there. But still, we need to work on our systems, management, and control of these funds for us to see outputs from these funds. And I agree, we have a lot of issues, like internal issues that we need to solve. So yes, we need right now to build capacity of our institutions, and we are a young continent. 70% of us is young. Even if we decide to riot against every government in Africa, if all young people, we rebel and say we are overturning every government in Africa, we can do it, because we are many in number, right? So it means if we can do that, we can do any other thing. So to say we need to leverage the potential, the power, the skills, and the tech savviness of the young people that we have in Africa. We need to create spaces for young people to engage in innovation, because one of the fastest ways even the Western world and the global North has used to advance and be way ahead of us when it comes to climate action is innovation. We need to see more tech related solutions. We need to see more young people create solutions that are tailored and contextual to our environments. So yes, we need to build capacity. We need to decide what kind, because mitigation in Sweden is not mitigation in Kenya. It's very different. Adaptation is very
Very
different. We are at different levels. So we have to, when we have opportunities and the seat at the table to speak from country level to individual levels, we have to be able to curate these adaptation action in our context with our needs and how these actions will fit us as Africans. So we need to have a voice and we need to act on that voice. And really, what I have seen since starting to engage in these processes is there is a system in place, right? And I feel like Africans, we have not yet been able to capture and understand the system. And it's not because we cannot. It's not because we cannot. It's just because we have not decided to tread upon that road. So I think it is time that we pick up this journey, make it really, really personal, and create the Africa that we want.
Wonderful. I love how you broke it down for us. You actually said we are late to the party. We really need to get back out there and actually change the narrative. It's not always this was done, so we are waiting for them to repay their mistakes. It's more of what can we actually do to mitigate the problem that we're going through right now. As we wind up, this I want us to have like a call to action moment. I'm going to give individually all our panelists 1 to 3 minutes. Just tell us what is your parting shot. What would you tell that individual to start doing today to change the narrative? Because it's not just about big corporations. Doing the most to environment. We're also not planting those trees. We're also not. They're not the only ones cutting those trees. The trees are being cut in your backyard by you. So what are those things that we as individuals, as youths, need to start doing? I am going to go in this order: Paul, Onjolo, and then Karen. What do individuals need to start doing to change the climate narrative? As individuals, don't go for governments, don't go for the global treaties. We've had that discussion. Don't go for groups of people, just go as an individual. What do you need to start doing? I had a rumor that you should stop eating meat. So you can actually clarify that for us now that we're going into the festivities. Should we stop eating meat? Is stopping eating meat going to help our climate and our environment in general? Is it? Tell us what you think. Tell us what you individually do and suggest what other people would do. Let's go with Paul.
Thank you once again. Well, just like I said at the beginning, that environment is a global concern. It's everyone's responsibility. So every individual in the environment has a role to play. So let's all play our roles. Let's all play our part. Do what we're supposed to do. Plant the tree. Take care of it. Let it grow. Okay. Report illegal actions against that were an environmental degradation. But what really pains me is one of the most developed nations, I can take an example, China. They come here to Uganda and do swamp reclamation, set up factories, set up industrial sites. Really, is that being done? I don't think it is. And also, I think the aspect of sustainability has really been redefined. In most cases, we are really in need of things that are not sustainable. The cost of sustainability really needs to be defined. Can we start living sustainably? Okay. Can we start having locally produced foods and avoid industrial processed foods? often put cinemas, put the drilling systems away, and we start constructing in water, in water catchment areas. You know what that happens? At the end of the day, everyone is submerged. Okay? Let's all be responsible citizens of the environment. Let's all do what we're supposed to do in our capacities. We are really, what we are doing now, we are supposed to have done it yesterday. Okay? So let's all play our part in the environment. The least thing you do can do a change, but a big change. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. And I think we didn't get you for the last time. Maybe your microphone was not well, but I think it was all about my parting shot. My parting shot is all about, let me break it down to simple Wangari Maathai story, the hummingbird. How about each and every individual out there, be the hummingbird? It's only the little things done by a million others. Yeah, it all begins from you. The little thing that's planting trees, switching off energy if you are not using it. Actually, just the little things that we do, done by me, done by you, done by us, can be able to change the story because with this thing, climate change, it's all about individual responsibility from the waste management, from the environmental conservation, and everything about it. It's all about individual responsibility. So please be the hummingbird and change the climate story. Thank you very much, and be able to speak up for climate change. Okay, thank you.
Well, I did not recognize that I had a technical issue there, but yes, it was about your parting shot. I was saying that our call for today is choose to stand for what you stand on. We stand on earth, so choose to stand for that. It is your individual role. As we wind up, Karen, why don't you tell us what your parting shot to the youth is today? What can they individually do to change the narrative?
So people would say I'm saying this because I have a journalist background. I'm a journalist, but we need to be as loud as we can be. So talk to climate action to your mom, to your dad, to your cousins, to your friends. I know we young people, we are the most social. You meet a lot of people, so just talk to them about it. Try to understand the smaller issues. Try even to know what is the environmental strategy for your street, because they are there. We have those and they are there. So the little things, just as the former speakers have said, try as much as you can to reduce waste, and ask yourself before you do anything, before you buy something, or before you engage in a certain activity, how does that impact the environment? Always ask yourself this question: how does that impact the environment, and how best can I engage in this activity or action with the least impact on the environment? When you do, it's like, for instance, I could give a very lively example. When we go and use the ATM, you right now, most of them have options to say, okay, do you need a receipt, right, after doing a transaction? But then you can just take 5 minutes to have the banking service on your phone, so that when you do any transaction, you can get your balance through the phone and just avoid taking paper receipts from ATM machines. So just ask yourself always, like, how does this action impacts the environment, and can I do anything to reduce the impact? And if you can, please go for that road. Go for that road. But also, let's try to read at personal level and understand the processes and be part of the game.
Okay. Well, And just like that, I can say confidently that we have come to the end of our conversation today. So we broke down COP27. We tried to understand what exactly we felt as individuals from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania about COP27. And then we went down and looked at the treaties, the before and the after. And then we said it is about time for us to take the initiative. Stop calling out people for not doing things that we are actually not doing. Stop saying that the West is actually not doing anything to our climate change, yet we are not taking the initiatives. And as we wind up, we got different views on how you as an individual can actually change the narrative. So thank you so much, Karen from Tanzania. Thank you so much, Paul from Uganda. And thank you so much, Victor from Kenya. Thank you for representing those three countries on our regional forum right here on Speak Up Africa. Take a minute to go to www.speakupafrica.net. Have that conversation and tell us what you think. However you think it, read that publication on post COP27, and whatever you feel, however you feel it, write it there, and we will publish that result for you. And with that, I call it a day. Have a wonderful, well, is it Christmas? Yes, have a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year.